Am I crazy? Am I just really stupid? Did I have a massive stroke and hallucinate a way better movie for 2 hours than what everyone else saw in the heat of my brain cells disappearing en masse? I liked the Venom movie. I kept waiting for the part where it would turn terrible and laughable, but it just never came. They didn't even have that stupid scene where the suit makes Eddie dance. It's like all the worst parts were edited out and the final product was competent. Not exactly a masterpiece, but it's not a mess like everyone's saying. Please, someone just tell me I was hit in the head with a stray baseball or something. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I watched the movie and thought some parts of it were definitely finicky, but everyone's acting like it's Fantastic Four or Catwoman or Green Lantern. But it felt more like, I don't know, kind of like Ant-Man. Because Ant-Man was a small story, pun intended, with some neat and creative action scenes and some characters I liked a lot. And a few issues here and there that ultimately didn't detract from my enjoyment. It wasn't The Dark Knight, but it wasn't fucking Catwoman. Alright, I know this is the big question on everyone's mind, so I'll get this out of the way first. What's wrong with it? Well, I can tell you pretty firmly that it has flaws, but you name 10 movies that don't. Yeah, keep working on that. The biggest things that stuck out to me were some moments where the dialogue was really clunky. Like, here's a non-spoiler one if you saw the trailer. After Eddie falls off the motorcycle and breaks his legs, the bad guy catches up to him and he finally transforms into Venom and eats a guy's head. Then he swims super far away through the San Francisco Bay, and when he turns back to Eddie, he immediately goes, "My legs were broken and now they're fine." Eddie, you turned into an 11-foot monster and ate a man's head. Think you should have commented on that first, Jesus. I know you reporters are jaded, but wowzer. Is that a really weird line? Yeah. Does it ruin the whole movie? No, it just made that one scene feel a little weird. But the dialogue after it is fine. There's a lot of spots like that, but again, they don't ruin the movie, they just feel a little stiff. Even still, Tom Hardy does a good job of delivering his lines. The trailers made him out to sound like a mental deficient who jump cuts 9 times every sentence, but he sounded fine to me. They even fixed Venom's overly bassy voice. Another big gripe is the pacing. This movie starts off at a decent pace, develops everything about as well as it should, but as soon as Eddie gets the suit, it just bumps into overdrive and barely slows down until the ending. I think the middle act of the film is where you can feel the studio-mandated edits the hardest. It just sprints from one thing to the next, and some really important conversations are just rushed in there really fast. However, don't get me wrong, this movie makes sense. It's not like Suicide Squad, where the hack editing job makes it feel like a bunch of random scenes mashed together in no particular order. It's very coherent and fluid. I never had to stop and ask, wait, how did we get here? Or, wait, when was that established? Regarding some plot elements. Everything you need is in there, it's just going a little too fast. And of course the soundtrack is a cringy mess of incredibly dated songs. And it distracts from a pretty decent original score. Tom Hardy was certainly trying his best, and while everyone else is kinda not as into it, they aren't distractingly bad. Venom and Eddie still feel exactly like themselves from the books. Eddie is high-strung, has a very specific sense of morality, is a little morally flexible if it gets the job done, and is kind of a goofball despite taking himself really seriously. Venom is crazy, violent, and a rambunctious little thing, but sometimes stops to smell the roses and appreciate life on Earth. He has a sense of right and wrong on his own and needs Eddie to guide him away from chaos a little, but is still good deep down. It's like the script somehow pulled a miracle out of its ass and understood these characters pretty well. Sure, Eddie isn't religious in this version, and he's a lot less angry all the time, but he still feels like himself. Reminds me a little bit more of the recent Don Cates Venom book, where he's like, not as much of a grumpy douchebag. And when I hear people criticize Venom as being a flat character, they always talk about how he's this big, dumb, feral rage machine full of hate. They tone that part down and work more on his other traits. And yet I get this feeling that people will somehow say that's still wrong anyway. I think everyone just decided to hate this movie from the jump and really wants to see something a lot worse than what's there. Before I get into spoiler territory, take my word for it. Just put all the behind-the-scenes nonsense out of your head and go watch it anyway. Even though you're probably seeing a shitload of clickbait titles about it being trash from people who have whatever opinion will equal the most views. Just form your own opinion. Give it a chance. I really love this character, and while I think there's plenty of flaws, I still had a great time and didn't come away disappointed at all. Alright, now for some spoiler territory. I think the only noticeable parallel to Catwoman is Eddie yells at an overly loud neighbor in his apartment to turn the music down while he's still figuring out his powers. Yeah, that's it, I guess. Or maybe the folks at CinemaSins will make some big point about how the main character goes to a skyscraper or fights police in both films, and why that makes it a nearly identical movie. Gotta love them and their totally honest opinions. However, something I think was lacking a little was the symbiote's motivation. Venom seemed to have some kind of change of heart somewhere in the film, and best I can guess is that it was a scene that was on the cutting room floor. At first he's just kind of running around having fun and fighting shit, and then goes back to Eddie and tells him he doesn't want Earth to be destroyed by Riot and the other symbiotes. And it has this like, you changed me by being an okay dude moment, but that wasn't very well established. It just kind of stopped at one point to tell Brock that it thinks Earth is pretty and likes the food here. But that didn't really seem like enough for a big character jump. Like, there's just a scene missing, I guess. The middle act is missing a lot of good stuff to really tie up the characters. However, I still really like the back and forth between Eddie and the symbiote, and they have a pretty fun chemistry whenever they do get that time to talk. I feel like I saw 80% of a really great Venom movie, and they cut out a big chunk of the stuff that would have made this go from being just good to really great. It's a decent movie that was edited poorly, and that fits the description of a lot of blockbusters lately from all the major studios. It's like the art of editing is just dying. But again, this movie was solid. It told a story that made sense, and I liked the characters, and of course the action was really unique and cool. I'll have to admit a certain amount of bias though, because I've read all the Venom comics. Some of the mechanics of the symbiote are kinda glossed over and not explained super explicitly. Some people who don't know a lot about the character might get a little confused about some stuff, but having all this prior knowledge to the source material, I didn't feel the need to get answers for those questions because I already knew how it worked. But again, that's just a minor thing. If you want to understand how the suit doesn't kill Eddie by eating his organs, just go read this comic called Venom: The Hunger. It's really good, and the movie makes a nice little nod to it near the end. Also, Woody Harrelson's wig looked really stupid. But anyway, I'd be down for a sequel with Carnage, hell yeah, dude. Huh. I just can't shake this feeling of guilt for enjoying this movie so much. I don't know why, I have this anxiety like I'm the only person in the world who had a good time watching this, and now my credibility as a reviewer is going to be in question, and people are going to start making memes about me being stupid for liking it. Am I just on crazy pills here? Like, I feel bad that everyone decided to hate this movie from the trailers alone, and it's going to crash and burn. I feel like Sony actually kinda did right by me for once after stabbing me in the heart a few dozen times. Well, there's two sad outcomes to this. Either everyone continues to hate on this because it doesn't have that big special stamp on the cover and a cameo from Tom Holland, or positive word of mouth spreads and makes people loosen up and give it a chance, only for it to be successful and give Sony the wrong idea that they should make that Morbius spin-off film in their dumb cinematic universe without Spider-Man. I'd argue that Venom is the only Spider-Man character you can give a solo movie. It doesn't work for anyone else because none of them are interesting enough to even hold their own comic without Spider-Man. Well, except the Punisher, I guess. Damn you, Amy. You put us in this god-awful position. And now we lose either way. Damn you. But they reworked a lot of this movie to accommodate a Spider-Man crossover in the future as a sequel, so if enough of you watch this movie, you may finally get what you want. But with that outcome, we get a stupid cinematic universe with Aunt May as a secret agent. I am willing to make that sacrifice. Are you?
I gave you what you wanted! Why would you stop? Yeah.